That night was cold, very cold. I ran through the streets cleverly and swiftly. I reached the top of a tall building and perked up upon the city. I took off my mask and looked down on the busy roadways. I'm not sure why I still wore the mask even though my face was healed. The mask had become a part of me, a part of my story. I sat down on the rooftops and turned in my radio to the local police station. I sat for hours trying to find calls on the murders that may have been linked to Jeff. After 9 years since that night Jeff burned me, I was still on the search to hunt and kill him. I finally heard the anticipated call. A woman and her husband were found dead in their home with holes in their chests and gashes in their cheeks forming smiles. I turned off the radio, putting on my mask, and sprinted to the scene. Police haven't arrived yet, so I investigated. Jeff had a habit of calling the authorities just before visiting his victims, so he may still be at the scene. Upon arrival, the house is completely intact, which is odd for Jeff. Normally, he burns the house with the victims. I barged inside and heard nothing but still silence. In the back of the house, I heard a faint tapping. I headed to the back of the house. I grabbed the doorknob of the back door and slowly turned it with sweaty, stressed palms. I squinted my eyes as I opened it, expecting something to jump out or something or someone to lunge at me. The door opened all the way, and my eyes were still closed for some reason. Then I heard it. The voice, that same voice I heard on the night he burned me, only deeper and more into manhood. Looks like you made it. I'm glad you did, friend. I opened my eyes and grabbed my knife. Killing is too easy, especially for me with a face that stuns everyone with my beauty. I open the window, jump inside, and the civilians just stop in their tracks when they see me. I always mutter, go to sleep in an attack. Killing is a lot easier when the person is asleep. Why do I kill? Simple. I want everyone to be as beautiful as me. Everyone in modern society is ugly and unattractive compared to me, and I feel bad for them, so I give them a piece of my beauty. However, beauty comes with a price. The only way to make people beautiful without causing them pain is to kill them. Killing was too easy avoiding around this time. I needed more of a challenge, so one night I decided to end one last easy target. Then I head for the most challenging foe of mine, Jane. I sat in the sewers during the day and watched the people pass by, completely oblivious to my presence below the sewer gate. I always lurk down there. It's cold, damp, and dark. Plus, it gives me a perfect window to set my eyes on my target. Then I found her, Mary J. Allen. She was beautiful, perfect skin, dark red hair, and dressed in a black gown with black heels. Later that night, I followed her home. She lived deep in the woods, so thinking she was protected from robbers, she left the door unlocked. At around midnight, I snuck in the house, creeped to the back room, and choked Mary until she passed out. One thing that caught my attention was her eyes. When she turned around before I grabbed her, her eyes widened with fear. Her pupils grew large and her iris dimmed. Not long after, her husband arrived home. I took my knife in hand and hid behind the door, entering the bedroom. As soon as he walked into the doorway, I slammed the door into his face, enough force to knock him out. A few hours later, they both woke up. Who are you? Why are you doing this to us? We have no money and nothing worth stealing, said Mary. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for beauty. What kind of reason is that? Asked the husband. I put the knife to his neck, and he jumped with sudden fear. His eyes, they did just what Mary's did. They widened, the pupils grew large, and the iris dimmed. A good reason, I chuckled. Now let's give you a smile. I stabbed the man in his left cheek and carved it into him all the way to his mouth. His screams in pain were only joy to my ears. I carved the other cheek and stood in front of Mary. Your turn, I said, stabbing her right cheek, and dragged the knife all the way to the other side of her cheek. There. Step 1 of the makeover is complete. Now for the skin. But first, let's call the police, shall we? I said, picking up the phone, dialing 911. I reported the crime and hung up. I then took a bottle of bleach from their bathroom and poured the entire bottle onto them. I didn't let them match, but I decided why. Because I'm doing this. I'm gonna need this place for my battle with Jane, of course. To replace burning them, I decided to cut out their hearts instead. I started with Mary and plunged the knife deep into her chest. I used all my might to cut a hole into her and rip her heart out. Blood was all over the floor, and Mary was dead, but the man was still living. His screams and cries only motivated me to kill him more painfully than his wife. Stop, please. I'll do anything you want me to do. Just please don't kill me, he said. There's nothing you can do now, I said as I plunged my knife into his chest, but slower than Mary. I had made sure that I twisted the blade as it went before I could begin cutting the hole. The body went limp. Well, that's no fun. You can't just die before I'm done killing you. Oh well, it only gives me more time to prepare for my battle with Jane, I said. I cleaned the blood off my blade and got myself mentally prepared for the battle, so I knew that Jane would be listening to the police radios. About 3 minutes later, I heard the front door open. This is it, I thought. I quirked my knife and caught Jane's attention by tapping faintly on the window. A few seconds later, the doorknob turned and the door opened. Jane, more beautiful than ever, stood in the doorway. I gripped my knife and prepared for the battle of a lifetime. It's gonna take a lot more than that to bring me down, Jeff, I said. I stepped on the handle of my knife with force, flinging it up into my hand. I stabbed Jeff in the neck, but he ignored it and continued to stab me. I managed to push him off, and I began to kick him as hard as I could. When he looked as though he had enough, I knelt down and ran the tip of my knife along his curved smile. That's too bad. I thought this was going to be more exciting and much harder than this. Oh well, at least I completed my life's goal, I said. Jane, don't do this. We could be partners. The two greatest killers in history, teamed up. We can make everyone beautiful like us. Never. Not after what you've done, I said. Jeff swooped his foot around and kicked me in the face. I flew across the room and hit the wall. Jeff stood up and walked over to me. You're nothing in comparison to me, Jane. I am a god. I am immortal, he said. No, Jeff, you're not a god. Gods are beautiful. And you're hideous, I said, struggling to stand. Jeff is brimmed with rage after that statement. I shouldn't have let you live. I had so many opportunities to end you. Now here is where it all ends. Let the better killer win. I looked at Jen and her beautiful face. My mind was buzzing with images of cuts all over her body and drenched in her own blood. I only smiled wider as she made a perfect slash on my neck. I could feel the warm blood gush down my chest. You caught me off guard, I said, barely able to speak. I blanked out the wound and grabbed Jane's neck to choke her. She put both of her feet on my chest and pushed me with all her might. My hand slipped, then I let her go. I've had enough time to train, Jeff. It's been 9 years, fighting police officers and pathetic men trying to protect their families. It's been good practice, she said. Not enough, I said as I lunged at her from the side. I slipped my knife into her stomach and twisted it around. She did not seem to respond to the pain. All she did was stare into the dark of the room, which was only illuminated by moonlight. After seconds that felt like hours, I saw red and blue flashing lights. I took out my knife and saw Jane limp to the floor dead. Guess I won, Jane. I waited until Jeff turned around, then I quietly raised myself up and grabbed my knife. I threw it at Jeff's back, directly in his spinal cord. He fell to the ground, paralyzed. I took out the knife and rolled his body over. He muttered words, but I couldn't hear them. I looked into his unblinking eyes and saw nothing but darkness behind them. I raised my knife only one last time. For some reason, a tear formed in my eye. Jane, I could hear him mutter. Before I could finish him, something ignited in his eye, something I'd never seen before. All of time came to a halt. The police lights outside froze, and the clock in the room stopped. Jeff rose from the ground. I told you, Jane. I'm a god, he said. No, you're a demon, I said quickly, lashing out at Jeff, but he grabbed my arm and broke it. I screamed out in agony. What's the difference? He said. I backed away from him, unable to use my right arm. The sky outside turned a bright red. The clouds held orange, stationary bolts of lightning. This was no ordinary battle. This was a battle between good and evil. The ultimate clash of supremacy. That's when I realized Jeff planned this. He's a demon. He's been building an army of souls. You're feeding off of them. You're taking their pain, grief, and anger, turning it into fuel. You sick, twisted creature, I said. You're smart, he said sarcastically. Took you long enough to figure it out. I thought you were much better than that, Jane. You have the souls of thousands of victims, but I have the souls of our families, I said. The souls of our families and Jess appeared behind me, illuminating a blue light. Behind Jess appeared rows and rows of children, men and women, glowing a deep red. My mother gave me much of her happiness to heal my arm. Jeff's brother gave me the bravery to stand up to Jeff one last time. My father gave me his hope to heal my stab wounds. You're no match for me now, Jeff. One good soul can stand above 1,000,000 evil souls, I said. That's where you're wrong, said Jeff. He began to absorb the souls of his victims. Yes, more. I ran up to him and swung my knife at him, but he blocked it, and when our knives touched, they turned out a purple spark. Jeff's knee was bent, so I took advantage and stepped my foot on it, then pushed up and flipped backwards, letting my feet extend and kicked Jeff in the chin. When I landed, Jeff instantly slashed my face, but Jeff's mother healed it for me. I took a quick swing at Jeff, but he grabbed my knife and threw it across the room. He cut my throat and pushed me against the wall, raising me up. I couldn't do anything but try my hardest to kick him. My body flowed around, desperately trying to escape. The room began to spin and get dark. Go to sleep, said Jeff. I held on my last grab of consciousness only to let it go. Before I could go into a deep sleep, I got a sudden burst of energy and managed to kick Jeff hard enough to make him let go and fall to the ground. I slid down on the wall and walked over to him. I'm done with you. It's time for you to die, I said. No, he said, grabbing my arm. Good has always won. It's time for evil to prevail. I kicked Jeff again and picked up my knife. You have been defeated, Jeff. Accept it, I said. Jeff the killer, you are Satan's most wanted in hell. We now banish you to this realm, to this place where you belong. All of Jeff's victims and families said in unison. The souls gathered around him and put their hands up. The ground around Jeff began to crack and fall into fire. Eventually, only a small platform was holding Jeff up. Please, no, he said. Jeff, go to sleep, I said. Just one final platform broke and sent Jeff plummeting into the hell during this descent. Jeff screamed the same way he did when he was being burnt alive at the party 9 years ago. I promised I'd make him scream like that again, and I have. The floorboards rebuilt themselves, and the souls turned to me. All of them in unison said, Thank you, Jane. You have freed us from the curse of Jeff the Killer. As a reward, we will bind your mask to your face, so you won't ever have to deal with it again. The mask was fused to my face, and my eyes turned a deep black. Thank you, I said. The souls faded, and the sky turned to normal. I jumped out of the window, making sure to dodge the cops before the time came back on, because I still had a criminal record to worry about. 4 years later. Jeff the Killer is dead. All the cases went cold. Police stopped searching for him, and they stopped searching for me as well. The battle between good and evil still rages, but mine and Jeff's part in the war is over. Our legendary battle was good prevails. I have a husband and 2 kids now, and we're a very happy family. Will I ever murder again? Perhaps, if anyone hurts me before the time came back on, because I still had a criminal record to worry about. 4 years later. Jeff the Killer is dead. All the cases went cold. Police stopped searching for him, and they stopped searching for me as well. The battle between good and evil still rages, but mine and Jeff's part in the war is over. Our legendary battle was good prevails. I have a husband and 2 kids now, and we're a very happy family. Will I ever murder again? Perhaps. If anyone hurts my new family, I will not hesitate.